Kurt Warner here on the Rich Eisen Show. How are you, Kurt?
I'm good, buddy. How are you?
I'm doing fine. We talked about it on game day morning, Sunday morning, but I'd love to give you the floor again about you knowing Larry Fitzgerald for as long as you have and seeing the growth, what you thought of his performance Saturday night.
Well, I mean, I tell you, it was incredible. And, I think back to, just when I first got there and the young man that he was and a great receiver, but a long way to go in developing into a complete receiver. And then at that time, he was kind of a, unspoken, quiet guy in the locker room or just went about and did his business, but allowed kind of other people to take the lead and be the leader of the team. And it was something we talked about and we worked on, and I saw as I was getting closer to the end that he was taking more of a leadership role. And then to see where he's at right now and to be the emotional leader for this team, the way, him making a catch and getting fired up. And you used to see him catch, hand the ball to the official, and then go back to the huddle. Now you see him when he catches, his excitement. He gets the fans going. He gets his teammates going. So couldn't be more fitting for him to be the guy that made that play in overtime, the catalyst to get them down. And then obviously we talked about it yesterday, the cool moment of Bruce Arians going, hey, you got us here. You're our leader. We're going to let you finish this deal, and the little shovel pass that he took into the end zone. And we talked a little bit last week, and I just said, go do what you did last time in the playoffs. Continue that, because that's what the playoffs are all about, is the greatest players stepping up at the biggest moments. It's exactly what he did the first run that we had, and it's exactly what he did the other night.
And it's interesting, Kurt, that you mentioned Bruce Arians saying, okay, let me dial these plays up for you, is because when Arians first got there, the story being discussed in many circles was that Fitzgerald couldn't fit into what Arians wanted to do, which is take Fitzgerald from the outside and put him in the slot inside in a Hines Ward type role. And the number of times that we saw Fitzgerald, as Marshall Faulk pointed out on Game Day Morning Sunday, the number of times we saw him Saturday night being outside like the old Larry Fitzgerald and making plays from there, it sort of was, in a way, the journey of Arians and Fitzgerald coming together, not being complete, because obviously there's a couple more games the Cardinals would like to win. It was a crowning moment in many ways for this marriage. Kurt, would you agree with that?
I would agree with that. And, what I've seen in my career, too, when I came to Arizona, I think certain people have certain perceptions of who players are. A lot of people, when I went to Arizona and then, struggling through some things early on, trying to build that team, and Coach Wisenhunt and Todd Haley came into Arizona, their impression of me was, hey, this was a guy that played great football, but his best football is behind him. We don't really expect anything from him. I believe it was very similar to that with Larry Fitzgerald, where, yeah, he's a good player and has been great, but we don't think he's that guy anymore. And so he's going to have to fit into what we do, and we're going to have to find a role for him, but it's not the same role that he had before. And, just like when I was here, it took some time to convince the powers that be that I am the same guy and can do the same things, maybe even better than I was before, as I've grown and developed into a more complete player. And I believe that's what Fitz has done here, is that, first of all, they didn't have that expectation for him. And he's just slowly and continually, as he's played this role, shown them that he can do all those things that he used to do. Maybe he's not the same player physically, but he can still make all those plays and be the catalyst, whether it's inside or outside. He's the guy that when you need a play to be made, give him the ball, give him an opportunity. And I believe that's what happened, is that they've just come to learn and appreciate what all Larry is and how complete a receiver he is and what he brings to the table, which I don't think they really knew when they got here. And so they kind of had this box that they put him in, and he's shown them, hey, don't put me in a box. What do you need me to do? I will do it. I'll block a safety. I'll go inside. And if you need me outside to make a play, I will make that play for you as well. And it's been a fun to watch that. And I've talked to Larry over the years and some of his struggles of trying to convince them of that and playing a different role. So it's so sweet to see them get to this point, him to break his own record for most catches this year. What a crowning achievement that is, when so many people said his best days are ahead of him. Mm-hmm. And then again in this moment on the biggest stage, when you're making this run again, to say who who's going to make those plays for us? Who's going to separate us at this critical moment? And to see number 11 do it again, I just think it's a crowning moment, and it's shown how far that relationship has gone and how much respect there is on both sides.
Kurt Warner joining me here on the Rich Eisen Show, and now Carson Palmer has broken through for the first time in his career with his first career playoff win. How do you think that will maybe remove pressure or affect his performance in any way in Carolina? Because the last couple for Carson, this game and the one previous, are not one for the memory banks in many ways, Kurt.
Yeah, it's always nice to get the first one under your belt. Carson, I'm sure, will be the first one to tell you he didn't play his best game. Looked like there were times he was forcing it a little bit. Some of it, I think, is the nature of this offense where they say we're going to take chances and we're going to take shots. But it's tough to do against really good teams in the playoffs and overcome that. They were fortunate to be able to do that this last game. I don't think they'll be able to make as many mistakes against Carolina in Carolina. But it's nice to get that first one under your belt. And I think always the great thing about the playoffs is you realize you have to win games different ways. And, you have to have a complete team. And we saw that on Saturday night, is that their defense, offense wasn't playing great. Defense stepped up, and held the game in check for the most part and gave the offense a chance, and they showed up at the end. So hopefully it just alleviates some of the pressure. The only thing I know is that if there's one pressure-packed game more than any others, I think it's the NFC-AFC championship game, because that's the game you don't want to lose. If you lose earlier than that, then you've never really kind of sniffed that Super Bowl idea. If we win this game, we're in the Super Bowl. If you win this game, then it's all about the Super Bowl, and you don't have to worry about being one and done anymore. You of course want to win that game, but it alleviates that pressure of, if we lose, we have to go home, because everybody's going home at this point.
Yeah,
so I believe this is the biggest pressure-packed game, because nobody wants to lose this game and not be the team that goes to the Super Bowl. So hopefully that first game, and as they get into this thing, the nerves will settle a little bit, and they'll be able to play football, because I believe we have the four best teams here playing championship weekend, and it's going to be fun if they all show up and play their game. It's going to be a great weekend.
Well, and Kurt, I've got Kurt Warner here on the Rich Eisen Show. What is Peyton Manning's game right now? I mean, what do you take from that performance yesterday moving into what appears to be his final matchup with Tom Brady?
I tell you what, I thought he played great yesterday. I just went back and watched the film. I thought he played a really masterful game. I thought he was on the mark with most of his throws. I think the wind played a factor on some of the drops. I think there were some big drops by his receivers that changed the complexion. So I thought he played really, really well yesterday. Again, the one thing we don't see much in their game is the throws down the field. Those big game-changing throws, whether it be Peyton not being able to hit them this year or them not calling nearly as many of them. So that's the one area that they don't seem to have, or Peyton doesn't seem to have. I thought all the intermediate stuff, his reads, his decision-making, was great yesterday. I thought he played a really great game, and it looked like he had great control of the football. They just didn't take many shots down the field. I don't know if they can live in that world against Tom Brady unless their defense really steps up. So that's interesting. I think the other thing I saw is that they have a lot more run plays against what we call a stacked box, meaning an extra defender in the box. I think, in the past 2 or 3 years, every time Peyton gets that look, he's going outside and throwing it in one-on-one situations. Yesterday I saw him hand the ball off in those kind of situations. So I think they're a little more conservative, whether that's just Gary Kubiak's system or whether that's Peyton Manning's limitations. But I thought with what they asked him to do and the intermediate stuff to the short stuff and decision-making, I thought he was excellent yesterday. And I expect that same thing next week. The question will just be, can the defense hold Tom Brady down enough where they're not going to need those big plays?
Is Brady the best of all time, Kurt Warner?
Yes. I don't know how you are. 10 AFC championship games along with the 6 Super Bowls and a chance for a 7th. Plus, he's playing at such a high level right now at this stage in his career. I don't know how you argue that he's not the best. And, I know there's things you can say. Joe Montana, I thought, was unbelievable, and to win 4 Super Bowls. But it was also in an era where I thought they had the best team year in and year out, too. Tom has continually shown with whatever team, in whatever situation, that he's going to put you right there every single year, and the consistency by which he's done it. Yeah, I am ready to crown him as the best of all time, and then everybody else gets into that mix for number 2.
Kurt, thanks for taking the time. I know all your kids are off from school today. I appreciate you calling in. Thanks, Kurt.
No problem. Anytime, buddy.
We'll see you soon. That's Kurt Warner, Super Bowl champion, MVP, Hall of Fame finalist, going in.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern. On Audience.